Yo, 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 what is up, everybody? This is Kyle and Mike from the Fantasy Phenom, here to cover today's NRA playoffs, National Rest Association. Although I feel like NRA might already be used, huh?
Yeah, I think somebody's got a handle on that one already. Yeah, so I guess that's their fallback plan was Basketball Association. So Kyle, man, I'm talking some NBA, dude. Playoffs start today.
Playoffs?
It's playoffs. Yeah, man, for real.
Playoffs?
It's gonna be weird having basketball and baseball and
Hockey playoffs are starting.
This is the start of a new time here this April.
Dude,
a lot of good stuff.
This is the sports mecca of the year. The time of the year, I should say. You got MMA tonight. You got no NASCAR this weekend, ironically. I believe no NASCAR this weekend. Is there anything else that's going on? Anything else that's going on? What's up, guys?
Yeah.
Mike says,
no,
damn, Mike's finally back.
I'm here, guy. On a Saturday, you got me. That's right. I'm happy to be here on a Saturday.
Hell yeah. Why is this not working, damn it? Hold on. I'm trying to... These ain't your problems.
Yeah.
Well, 4 games. 4 games today.
All spread out, too, so they're all on the TV.
But that's okay, because there's no rest concerns. So it's not like we're going to get any after-lock news that's going to kill us.
Yeah, there's no questionable... The only questionable player right now is James Ennis. So that's pretty refreshing to see.
Mike says, I don't want to see Theo in that confused Santa hat.
Confused Santa hat? Oh, right.
That's great. That's Theo, man. I don't this guy's he's a different character. But yeah, dude, we got Indiana, Cleveland. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, between work and class and other shit, things have been going on. But no work today, so I'm here hanging out.
Hell yeah. So we got Indiana, Cleveland. That's a 2-7 matchup. We have Utah, LA. That is a 4-5, I believe. Milwaukee, Toronto is a 3-6 or 4-5.
I think it's a 3-6.
Did Toronto finish above?
I don't even know.
I think it's a 4-5. I don't think Toronto finished above Washington, did they? This is how long.
No, you're probably right.
This is how long I've been out of the NBA.
You're probably right. No, they did 3-6 for the Raps, Bucks, 4-5 the Clips, Jazz,
and then
2-7
for Memphis,
Spurs, Grizz.
Yep.
That's right. So yeah. Anything that strikes you like right off the bat here in these matchups?
Yeah, the Memphis San Antonio games will probably be like 90-72, all 4 games, and it'll probably be a sweep.
Yeah, this slate in general, man. I think Utah and the Clippers, you can say the same. Milwaukee and Toronto both run really slow pace all season long. So yeah, we've got a lot of teams, especially on today's slate, and a lot of playoff matchups that looking to be pretty slow pace in this first round. I mean, it makes things a little easier as far as a DFS perspective when you're looking at, you got the slow pace teams playing the other slow pace teams, and the opposite is true,
Yeah, I don't know, man. Really, the only enticing DFS game for me is maybe Milwaukee, Toronto, and then Indiana and Cleveland.
That's what I'm saying. It looks like too easy, man.
Which means it'll probably be the Spurs stack in the winning lineup.
Yeah. No, I just got to play smart. Obviously, the minutes are going to be safe with these guys. The usage and the adrenaline is going to be up. So play the game script, play smart. And again, today in particular, this Indiana-Cleveland game projects to be the one you want to target. And I think, like I said, going forward in all these slates, we're going to have target games to avoid just based on these matchups in the first round here.
I agree. I like the other games a lot better. Actually, the other 4 games, I like what do we have? Boston.
Bulls.
Yep, Boston Bulls.
Wizards, Hawks.
Yep.
Warriors, Trailblazers, and Rockets, Thunder. So that slate tomorrow is going to be much tougher.
Those 2 other Western Conference games are going to be the games to target for sure. Do you hear Dame called a series in 6?
Yeah, I saw that.
Do you think it even lasts 6 games?
I don't know. I was gonna say, why doesn't he say sweep? I mean, he just pretty much admitted defeat in 2 games.
Right. So what do you? Okay. So before we dive into DFS, Mike, give me your round 1 winners.
Okay. I'm going. This is off. Whatever. The only upset I think I have are the Bucks in the East, and then in the West, I like the Jazz to beat the Clippers. Everybody else, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if a 4-5 is an upset, but well, I mean technically it is, but yeah, I actually like the Jazz better than the Clippers too.
Yeah, just for the sake of not going through everyone and picking a winner. So I did it that way.
I think obviously Spurs handle Grizzlies. I think Cleveland does their thing. You have Warriors will beat the Blazers. You have Thunder and who is the other one? Thunder, Rockets. I think Rockets will win that. So my prediction, if it's bold or not, is I actually think Rockets win the West.
It's going to be interesting. I think most people have them with the Warriors in the finals.
But I do agree. I like the Jazz, and I don't think Toronto's a good team. So I agree with you on the Bucks. So.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. I think the Raptors are hungry, man. So they've just been they haven't been able to follow through in the playoffs. The Bucks kind of have nothing to lose, right? Whereas the Raps kind of got all this on their shoulders. They made that Ibaka trade. Kyle Lowry's a free agent this offseason. Things could really unravel for the Raptors if they don't, come out here and win game 1 and the pressure starts coming on them. They got the whole country of Canada on them, you know what I mean?
Yeah. They literally have an entire country
seriously,
behind them.
Though.
They have an entire country behind them, yeah.
So, it goes both ways. They win game 1, they have the momentum. I think this is a big game for them, man.
Just like the Cowboys are America's team, Toronto is Canada's team.
Yeah, for baseball too, man. But another takeaway just before we dive into play-by-play, DraftKings.
Yeah.
I didn't play enough NBA DFS on a daily basis in the playoffs last year to know if they did this last year. Maybe somebody could help me out, but the minimum salary on DraftKings is now $2,000. So that is $1,000 cheaper. It's a lot of money. So you're looking at players. Generally, the only 2K players are those that are projected to not play at all or under, 8 minutes. Looking through it, there really isn't any 2K player on this slate that you can go in and be like, oh, this guy may play 20 minutes. Now, again, if you're looking at recent game logs, stop.
Yeah.
Because I know that is a common fault for people playing, that have 10 minutes to build a lineup. Last week, those minutes, those performances are not going to continue over to this week.
They mean nothing at this point.
They mean nothing. So you have to follow what you think. Who the primary bench players are, Six men, we're talking 8 deep, for most of these teams, unless they are weak in a starting lineup position, such as, let's talk Toronto. I know their front court, generally speaking, is limited as far as minutes, specifically Valanciunas, right? They like to get Patrick Patterson in the lineup and play Ibaka at the 5. They have Jakob Poeltl. I don't know how much of a factor he's going to play in the playoffs, but down the stretch when they were fighting for seeding, he was their backup center.
Yeah, and
so
it's funny that you
things
mentioned,
like that to find value.
It's funny you mentioned Patterson because I believe he's low salary. And you're right, he does get run, and I am targeting Patrick Patterson today. Let's see what his price is. He is $2,500 on DraftKings and minimum salary on FanDuel at $3,500.
Right.
So someone to look at.
Now,
obviously going ahead.
Again, not a value play I would be on, except the fact that he's 2,500. That is, I'm still trying to process, how this factors in. So 2,500, I guess, you're looking at 10 points for 5 times value at minimum salary on DraftKings now.
So with that, well, I guess I should ask, with this salary change, do you think, and obviously we don't know how to project it yet, but in terms of what to look for, but do you think this is going to affect the cash line?
I'm intrigued. I think I am, because I was looking at the studs didn't go up in price. The studs are all
same price.
The same prices that they were. It's just the value guys have become cheaper. So what it's going to do is going to allow you to play an additional stud, and if you feel like going stars and scrubs. So it kind of takes the easiness out of it, I think, because it's going to entice you to look for value. Because if you can find value that is going to play minutes, based on their price, they're easily going to return that value, So looking for guys that are going to play, like DeMar Carroll, for instance. He's a starter on this team, going up against Milwaukee, who has a positive DVP correlation to small forwards. He averages 18 points a game versus Milwaukee this season. Terrible, right? We would never consider DeMar Carroll, but he's $30,000. So at 18 points a game against Milwaukee at $3,000,
that's
knowing that he's going to play minutes, he becomes in play. Whereas
before,
that's not someone I would ever really look at.
I agree with you. So on FanDuel, obviously it stays the same, but I am really, really intrigued to see whether this bumps cash lines up. What kind of strategy you're going to see in terms of stars and scrubs? Are people still going to go more balanced? It almost feels like a trap. Because it
does, doesn't it?
It does. It feels, with playoffs, obviously you have set minutes. Or not set minutes, but a larger minute workload for your main guys. But like you said, an 8-man rotation at max usually. So that's 3 guys off the bench. The guys that were getting run at the end of the year are probably not going to get out of their jumpsuits.
Right. What I'm saying is it makes me look at cheap starters that were never fantasy relevant because they never got usage.
Yeah. Like
Iman Shumpert, $3K. I just mentioned DeMar Carroll. Like, people I've never really considered playing because they don't shoot, But then you also have to factor in the fact that this is playoffs, so the usage percentage is going to be funneled even more than it normally is. So why play these guys now? Definitely just things to consider. I guess we'll talk more about value plays when we go position by position, but I just wanted to mention the pricing change if you hadn't seen it yet.
Cool. All right, well, let's jump into point guards. Obviously, first game, Indiana, Cleveland. At least we're going to go by alphabetical order. Not that it's the first game on the slate, but Indiana, Cleveland, Kyrie Irving. He's still 7,800 on DraftKings, man. That is an enticing play.
Yeah, again, I mentioned this is the game I'm looking to target. It also helps it's the first game on the slate. Um, for what it's worth, Kyrie, 4 games against Teague, averaging over 40. I think one of those games was without Kevin Love.
Are you
Yeah,
looking at it right now? Yeah.
yeah, one of those games was without Kevin Love. So yeah, I think both these guys are in play. Obviously, this is the game I'm looking at. So Teague and Irving, I think both these guys are in play. Teague, you can look at the other side of it, and this season, those 4 games, Teague's actually averaged more points than Kyrie Irving. So
So do you look at Jeff Teague then,
they,
who's 73 on
yeah,
DraftKings? But look at the
so
price difference.
$500 cheaper
Look at the price difference on FanDuel. 2K difference.
going down to Teague.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a no-brainer. I think I'd rather play Teague.
Over Kyrie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Darren Williams, 4K on both sites.
Interesting. Yeah. There is no K Felder, so he would be the third string point guard. I don't know how much that really factors into what you're thinking, but I mean, I like to consider all options. I don't think Felder was in play at all.
No, yeah.
But
I don't think I ever considered him. But
yeah, Darren Williams will be the backup point guard today. I imagine he will play. I don't see him playing more than 15 minutes, though. Unless this game is super out of proportion, but I still don't see them playing garbage. I still don't see garbage time starting until at least 6 minutes left in the game.
I can get behind you on that. Tony Parker, Patty Mills. Who scores more out of those two? And then obviously Mike Conley. I don't think I like either point guard. Like, why would I pay $7,200 for Mike Conley when I can pay $7K for Jeff Teague on FanDuel in a much better game? You know?
Yep. No, I completely agree with you there. I don't really like Conley or Gasol today against San Antonio. I don't think I will going forward. It's just not a smart game to play in. Both these teams are terribly slow. Not terribly slow, but that's just their games. It's in San Antonio. Tony Parker, he has averaged 25 minutes a game this season. Being that it's the playoffs, I think you can.
I expect that to bump
that to probably 28 comfortably. At 4,200, he makes for intriguing value, I think.
This is true. At
28 minutes because he's been somewhat limited all year. So you look at his fantasy points per game, and that is at a 25 point average. So obviously that's what his pricing is built around as far as the algorithm. Tony Parker, Monta Ellis, same price. Monta Ellis going up against Cleveland as a shooting guard, but he is point guard eligible on DraftKings.
I would go Monte, because again, I like the game, and we love targeting Cleveland at shooting guard, right?
Yep. And something I saw today is that in the 4 games that Indiana and Cleveland played together this season, Monta Ellis actually averaged over 30 minutes a game. So for whatever reason, they, I guess, liked him in that matchup.
Sam asked, would we play Conley and Teague on FanDuel? I personally will not play Conley.
I guess you can make a case for it. Conley, his price is low on DraftKings, so you can make a case for him. Again, him and Teague are the same price, and I think Teague will garner the more ownership. And the reason I say you make a case for him is that he's been playing well, right? So this is a guy that had to play big minutes down the stretch. I think you can. He's a guy you can kind of look at game logs with because they were, big minute games, and so.
Yeah. He meant.
The problem again.
He meant Teague and Parker, and that yes, I think you can go Teague and Parker.
Yeah.
We talked about how obviously minutes increase for Parker makes for.
Yeah, I think that price is a little too low. Again, the pricing algorithms on both sites factor in,
it's going to be
their
interesting.
averages.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it changes how the pricing changes, obviously, as these playoffs go, right? This is the first game of the playoffs. They really don't have an idea of ownership and or minutes that these guys are going to get. So,
Yeah, but age like vets like, you know, Parker, I think, are in line for a bump in minutes.
he has to
I'm
be.
trying to think of enough.
They played him sparingly the whole season for the playoffs, knowing that they were going to be in the playoffs, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm trying to think of another example. I guess we'll find one eventually.
What are your thoughts on Kyle Lowry, or Corey Joseph for that matter, against Milwaukee, who down the stretch, and they were playing, gave it up to point guards?
They did, yeah. So I'm wondering what that is a product of. You know, that wasn't like anything really changed. The
Yeah.
only thing that really changed with Milwaukee is the fact that, you know, maybe they were pressing a bit. Maybe they wanted to rely more offensively with Brogdon and Delly. Chris Middleton came back, but there's nothing that really is a clear-cut reason as why they started
Struggling.
point guards started playing well against them. So, yeah, Kyle Lowry, man. Again, I talk about this Toronto team, being that he's a free agent in the offseason, and they're hungry, right? I think that
And
that game script is in full effect in this first round matchup.
and see, for me, when I look at Toronto, just based off past watching them, it could change with Serge Ibaka in there now. But
Mm-hmm.
Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan are about 98% of Toronto's usage in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean his scoring usage is definitely going to go down with Ibaka, and I think. But
But
again, it's just another playmaker, and he's the guy running the show.
I don't know how much it takes a hit with Ibaka. Like, I don't know if Ibaka. This is just pure speculation on my part. I don't know if, to me, he becomes easily the third option, right?
Yeah.
Um, but they've had a third option before, and it's still going to be Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan. So I don't know. I almost feel like Ibaka might get lost in this just because of how the Raptors play. I don't know. It's just it's personal gut feeling. Like I don't target anyone on the Raptors besides Lowry and DeRozan in the playoffs.
Yeah, I guess what I meant is that I feel as if he's going to have to be extremely hot shooting the ball for him to take 20 shots.
Yeah, true.
I really don't. I really don't see like him taking 20 shots a game, unless he's feeling it.
That's a fair point. Do you look at Corey Joseph? He's really, really cheap now, obviously. Do you think he gets any run? I guess is the question.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that he's their sixth man. I really think it's
Norman Powell.
in the front court or on the wing, depending on what they want to do with DeMar Carroll. Obviously, they have PJ Tucker and Norman Powell. They've shown a proponency to play PJ Tucker as much as they wanted to. Obviously, they rented him, so unfortunately, there's that. I don't think you can look at Corey Joseph today.
That's fair. And then you got George Hill, Chris Paul, Austin Rivers, Raymond Felton is 2,400.
I did want to mention Malcolm Brogdon.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, sorry, completely skipped over
I
that.
think if you're gonna look at a game, yeah. Again, I don't really like much out of these games, but no, I lied. I think I'd rather just play Tony Parker and save some money. It's $5K for Brogdon seems a bit high. What were you saying, George Hill?
George Hill, Chris Paul, Austin Rivers, Raymond Felton is 2,400 minimum salary on FanDuel.
For what it's worth, Austin Rivers is ruled out today.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Good catch.
Could open up some minutes. I mean, obviously he and Jamal Crawford were the two guys coming off the bench, so that kind of solidifies Jamal Crawford's six-man role on this team. And again, he's another guy that is an aging vet that could see an increase in his average as far as minutes.
Gonna rely on some of the vets, right? So, do you play Chris Paul today? I think he's gonna go under the radar with this Indiana-Cleveland game. some of the value, and the fact that he's playing Utah. But if there's a position to target against Utah, I would say it is the point guard, right? Their front court.
Yeah, Chris Paul can do it all, man. He can do it in any matchup for sure. So I really don't mind playing Chris Paul today. Again, so it's something I'm only considering because of this 4-game slate. Something I wouldn't target Utah at all. If this wouldn't be a short slate with not much to look at, So again, I'm going to focus on this Indiana Cleveland game, but if I had to pick between Lowry and Paul,
I personally like Lowry.
I think I like Lowry too.
Monte Ellis, 4,300 on DraftKings, 4K on FanDuel. I like that play. And then Lance Stevenson is an interesting play.
One more thing, Kyle, just wanted to talk about George Hill for a second. George Hill did play in the final 2 games of the season after being out for, I think he was out for about a week.
Yep.
And he was on a minutes restriction in those last 2 games. So I guess until otherwise noted, we have to assume that he will remain on that minutes restriction.
I don't think you take the chance with a minutes restriction in the playoffs, though. Like, if you're the Jazz and you're playing to win, do you really want to roll out Shelvin Mack? Like, I feel like if George Hill can play, he's going to play his full minutes.
No, I completely agree with you, but I'm just saying from a DFS perspective, you're putting money in it. It's definitely worth noting.
True.
Again, this game is not till 10:30 tonight, and we haven't really been told.
Makes it a GPP play.
Yeah.
So, J.R. Smith, Lance Stevenson, Monte Ellis, all around the same price point. Do you look at any of these guys?
I'm looking for Lance. I don't think he's a shooting guard.
He's a small forward on DraftKings.
He's the only small forward? So I know for some time he was point guard too.
He's only small forward on DraftKings, which is weird, but...
Going up against Cleveland should be interesting, right? All series long.
That'll be a fun one. You got Manu. Tony Allen is out. Wayne Selden Jr., do you look there for value? Troy Daniels. Is Troy Daniels playing today?
He should be. I know Tony Allen is out indefinitely.
Yeah.
They started some Troy Daniels at first when he was out. They've actually started some Vince Carter. I think it's just matchup dependent. I don't know who they would go with today. Either way, I'm not on Troy Daniels at 2,700 though.
What about Wayne Selden?
Yeah, not him either. I don't know what's going to happen with Tony Allen out. I think it benefits
Vince Carter.
Yeah, I think it benefits Vince Carter. He's another guy, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about. Maybe some Andrew Harrison. I think I would rather play him over Troy Daniels if they slide him to the 2. I know Fizdale doesn't like to do that, so.
Okay. Do you look at the Spurs situation then, Manu?
Yeah, him and Danny Green. Again, I don't know if I really.
They're really low price. So
I'm not going to go there.
Okay. Giannis and DeRozan. Then you got that matchup. Milwaukee, Toronto. Giannis is 10-4 on FanDuel, 10-2 on DraftKings. Giannis is Giannis, man. I don't know how. I'm interested to see how he does in the playoffs, but Giannis is still Giannis. I mean, he can go out and put up the most points on the slate.
Yeah, he's crushed the Raptors this season as well. Looking at studs, you got LeBron. Talk about pricing in general. LeBron, Giannis, Paul George are really the only 3 guys in the 10K range.
Yeah, DeRozan's back down to 8K, which I like, especially. Well, it's all because Lowry's back, but I like DeRozan better at that price. That's for damn sure.
No, I'm definitely on all 3 of the studs I just mentioned.
Yeah.
LeBron, Giannis, and Paul George.
So we mentioned DeRozan, Norman Powell, $2,800 on DraftKings. That's an interesting play.
It is. It is. So, will they play him, man? I really do think he's their best bench player. He's become somewhat of a household name as far as DFS is concerned because of that stretch he had with DeRozan out.
Mm-hmm.
And at 2,800.
That's enticing, man. It really is.
It is. He's also guard and forward eligible. It'll help with building your roster. Again, I'm trying to focus a little bit more on this Indiana-Cleveland game. And then, so for that reason, I'm looking up a little bit. 500 more, you can get CJ Miles, who's also guard and forward eligible. I know Lance has cut into his minutes a bit, but, he's been playing a solid 20 minutes a game for pretty much the whole season. I don't think you can't really say that about Norm Powell.
That's fair. And then you mentioned Jamal Crawford, obviously. JJ Redick, those guys should get increased minutes without Austin Rivers. And then Rodney Hood on the flip side. We know we like to target LA at the shooting guard position. So some interesting plays there, all around the same price point.
It seems that Ingles plays more minutes than Rodney Hood, for what it's worth.
Okay.
Just kind of what's come.
Do you think that
of this whole Hood it being?
Do you think that
they're both the same price? I don't know, man. I really don't think it does. I mean, we haven't seen Rodney Hood play 30 minutes in a long time. Again, it could definitely change with the playoffs, but they like Ingles, Mm-hmm. There's a reason that he's earned his playing time, so I don't see that they changed what got him there.
I was just gonna say that, yeah. You don't fix what's not broken. Small forward, LeBron James, Paul George, you mentioned that. I think you can play both these guys right against each other. Both of them are going to show up. LeBron is 10-8 and 11. Paul George 9-8 and 10 on DraftKings and FanDuel, respectively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like this a lot. I think this is going to be a fun one to watch. Can you play Teague and George today? Together.
Yeah, I think you can. I don't see why not.
I think it's a 4-game slate. I think you definitely can. If I had to pick, again, if I had to pick one guy off each of these squads, I think it would be, all things considered, I think it would be Teague and Love.
Okay.
Obviously, that's price considered as well, but that's going to easily you're gonna do that, and you're going to easily get LeBron, Giannis, or Paul George. You can take your pick at that point,
True.
The reason I said Kevin Love is just because targeting this front court, I think it's probably one of the better matchups on the slate is going up against the Indiana front court.
We talk about rostering centers against them as well. So Tristan Thompson is mad cheap today. But on the reverse, I agree with you. I think Kevin Love can have a really good game down low on the boards. So, something to watch. CJ Miles is an interesting play today as well, Mike. 3,200 on DraftKings, minimum salary on FanDuel at 3,500.
Yeah, so I was talking about him. 3,200. When we said Norman Powell, I just felt like CJ Miles is a little bit safer, guard and forward eligible.
Yeah.
For only $400 more.
Real quick. Benel asked, do you think you guys can fade LeBron and George because of the super high ownership? I don't know if you can fade both, really. You can, to be contrarian, but I think those are the two highest scores on the slate. Maybe Giannis.
I think Giannis could. That's what I'm saying. You'd have to have Giannis. What I would do if you wanted to fade LeBron, I think that's fair. I think there's going to be some amateur players playing today as far as playoffs because, 4-game slates are easy to understand and people are excited for the playoffs. It's a Saturday, yada yada. So I think I would fade LeBron over Paul George, and go Giannis.
Yeah, I think probably LeBron garners the most ownership on the slate today.
Yeah, again, if you're playing an ownership game. But yeah, it's a good question.
What about Kawhi against Memphis? So we do talk about. I don't know who is really on Memphis to cover Kawhi. They're gonna
Yeah,
throw Vince Carter on him. Um, I don't know.
nobody's gonna guard
Yeah,
Kawhi.
I don't see anybody that can cover Kawhi. So
San Antonio's gonna sweep this series too, man. So I'm just gonna call that right now. Memphis is just not a good team. I think Indiana gets swept as well. Um, yeah, Kawhi is very intriguing to play. 8,500. I think that is a little too cheap for him. And again, that is just because he was limited down the stretch, since they had it in the bag, and the pricing algorithm has dropped him and Conley the same.
yeah,
You look at Kawhi, he thrives in games like this too. This is his style of play. You look
he
at what he's done against Memphis this season: 9 rebounds, 4 assists per game, almost a block a game, over a steal a game, for about 45 DraftKings points.
he makes for an interesting play because of the the other small forwards on the slate. You got LeBron and Paul George, right? So I think if you fade those two, you have to go with Kawhi and Giannis, which is really contrarian. But Kawhi at that price will allow you to not have to go a stars and scrubs approach.
Yeah, and again, like I said, if I had to pick one player off each side of the Indiana-Cleveland game, it'd be Teague and Love. And if you do that, you can kind of go Giannis and Kawhi and play an ownership game if you wanted to.
Yep.
But, I mean, it's not as safe. Obviously, Giannis and Kawhi, if everything goes well, can have really nice games. But the floor is a little bit lower in those games because there's limited number of possessions, limiting the fantasy points. They really have to garner the usage.
True.
Which they will.
We talked about Vince Carter. Obviously going in for Tony Allen. You got Chris Middleton from Milwaukee at 61. I mean, he's been this price pretty much all year. What do you think of that?
Who's the last guy you just mentioned?
Chris Middleton.
Yeah, he's been hovering at 6K all year. You're right. Definitely could be an X factor. I think a lot of the guys in the mid range could be an X factor today. Hayward, you say the same thing about Gordon Hayward.
Yeah.
But yeah, Chris Middleton, there's really no one around him in price. I don't have a strong take there. Vince Carter, again, I believe he'll probably start. He started against the Spurs last time they played. He started shooting guard, so I imagine that's what they're going to do. I guess it all kind of depends if James Ennis plays, because then he'll probably have to play small forward. And then if that happens, I don't know, it should be interesting what they do at shooting guard today.
DeMar Carroll, you mentioned 3,100 on DraftKings. That's a really nice price. PJ Tucker, obviously they got him for a reason. Gordon Hayward and Joe Ingles. So those are kind of the last couple guys I think you look at.
For what it's worth, I expect Richard Jefferson to play minutes over his average. For lack of a better way of putting it, just because we saw it last year in the playoffs.
So, does Gordon Hayward and Kawhi Leonard sound intriguing to you at all?
Not really, no. But again, if you're trying to differentiate, if I had to pick one game that kind of defies Vegas, it'd be the Utah Clippers game. I think that game could get into a bit of a high scoring. Could get a bit more high scoring than we think.
That's interesting. Just looking at some of the questions here. Carter is starting at shooting guard today.
He is? Okay.
That's what they said here. What about Monroe? Any idea if his minutes go up?
Yeah, no, not at all. I think this Milwaukee Toronto game this series is going to be a bit of a trap.
Yeah, I mean it's still Jason Kidd, man. But for what it's worth, he did take he did put the Bucks in a really good spot in the playoffs. So
Yeah, I can't hate him that much. Greg Monroe, 4,800. That is very cheap. Oh man, he didn't play more than 20 minutes against the Raptors all season. But that's a really cheap price for him. I imagine that I really hope that he plays more minutes. I mean, if they want any chance of winning, man, they would play him more minutes. And then again, same thing can be said on the other side with Valanciunas. Play this guy 30 minutes, man, against Greg Monroe this series. Maybe you'll win.
Valanciunas is a really intriguing play today from a DFS standpoint, especially a GPP standpoint.
Yeah, we've seen what this guy can do if he plays 30 minutes, but it's almost like the dude Dwayne Casey just watches and just like, up 28 minutes. It's like, damn it, it's only midway through the third quarter, but you already hit 28 minutes, so you should probably sit down. Yeah, a lot of good center plays in the mid-range, like we just mentioned. Valanciunas. Baca, maybe. 5,300 is very cheap. Greg Monroe, Tristan Thompson. Yeah, I can make the case for all of those guys.
Power forward, you mentioned Kevin Love. That's going to be interesting. His price is high. What about Thad Young? Look at the reverse, Mike. 56 and 52 on FanDuel.
Mm-hmm. Thad Young's come alive a bit.
Yep.
He, hopefully it'll translate into this series. I think they really do need him with Miles Turner, struggling post All-Star break. Obviously, he's been injured most of the season. He looks healthy out there. He's a guy that takes what's given to him. He doesn't create offense. So I don't know. I could see him getting lost. It seems like a pretty good matchup with Love defensively for him to exploit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Kevin Love is not a good defender. So you can target that all day. Someone asked, so Selden Jr. is a no-go today? It's a punt play. Super punt play.
The thing about Selden, man, is that
Dave loves Thad Young.
He's 2K, so
it's punt.
He's not going to continue. He's not going to play 30 minutes. When he first started, when they signed him, right? They signed him because of the injury, and they needed some depth. Mm-hmm. So they had a couple guys out, and they his first game they signed him. They started him, and he played like 16 minutes. Now down in the past week, obviously he's been playing a bunch, but I caution looking at the last week. I know Memphis was fighting, but still, this is San Antonio.
True. LaMarcus Aldridge against Memphis. That makes for an intriguing play. Zach Randolph. I don't know about that one. JaMychal Green minimum salary on FanDuel. So I mentioned Patrick Patterson, man. 2,500 on DraftKings, 3,500 on FanDuel. That is a play I can get behind, Mike.
Yeah, we talked about him. JaMychal Green, I think, is in line for minutes today, especially if James Ennis is not going to play. I think he's definitely in line to get some minutes today at 4K. You can look there. Zach Randolph at 5,200. I'm intrigued to see what they do with him today. Obviously, San Antonio's got two pretty good centers, so I'm sure he'll need to be out there and get his. Now, I like the Thad Young call, though. I think he kind of trumps Ibaka and Randolph in my mind.
Okay. Do you look at Blake Griffin? 7,700 on DraftKings.
He's played well against Utah this year.
And what about Derek Favors?
Oh man, poor Derek Favors. Derek Favors definitely is going to get the least amount of ownership out of Ibaka, Randolph, Young, Favors. So again, if you're playing that game. But I just don't see him really coming out there and playing in huge amount of minutes. I mean, him and Hood could be surprising if they do play starters minutes today.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely something to look for.
King Howie is off of Aldridge. Interesting.
Yeah, I've been off him all year, man. He's been really tough to roster.
Yeah, I think Kawhi's the play from that game. And then centers, man. There's a lot of good matchups here. We talk about targeting Miles Turner, but in the last 5, for what it's worth, if you value it, Cleveland has given up a ton of points to centers. On the year, the Indiana Pacers have given up a ton of points. So you can look at Tristan Thompson, who's mad cheap, just as kind of like a rebound and blocks kind of guy. Marc Gasol, too expensive for my taste, especially in that game. Pau Gasol, definitely not going there. Dwayne Dedmon makes for an interesting play, though, at his price, Mike.
Yeah. Again, all these cheap guys are extra cheap today. The guy I was just looking at was Maurice Spates at 2,500. He dropped 33 against Utah last time they played. I mean, this Utah backup front court isn't really much to be worried about. In that game, played 22 minutes, 4 for 7, had a double-double, which is strange. But still, at 2,500,
it's a worthy punt play.
He generally plays 15 minutes. Even if DeAndre Jordan and Blake Griffin are out, he's going to play 15 minutes. But yeah, 2,500, I think it's crazy cheap. I mean, then you look at John Henson, a guy that, I mean, I think since they've added Hawes and played Maker some more, I think Henson's really kind of fallen off as the play. But all three of those guys under $3,000 today. I'm just really curious to see what to do. I'm going to have to really evaluate what to do with these really cheap guys.
Yeah. And then from this last game, Gobert and Jordan. Do you look at either? Gobert is mad expensive, so I don't know if I go there, especially with Tristan Thompson and Miles Turner, who I think are in better matchups.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about like Gobert and Jordan thrive off rebounds. I did say that I think this game kind of goes a little faster than normal, but they'll be fighting each other in a sense, It's not like Gobert is going up against. I mean, these are probably the two best rebounders, in my opinion, in the West. So
it's going to be a fight down though, and then
it could be a little bit of a wash at the category that really provides their floor.
And then I think the last guy, man, is Valanciunas, like we mentioned. So that is an extremely interesting GPP play, and it's all a matter of if he gets minutes. And I would like to assume that his minutes increase a little bit in the playoffs, but I couldn't tell you that for sure. But if he gets minutes, dude can destroy. But he could end up being the highest scoring center on the slate. He has that potential.
He does. He does, definitely. For what it's worth, I was just looking. Jordan averages 12.8 rebounds a game against Gobert, and Gobert averages 11.8 against Jordan. Okay. Both below their season averages. But it's still pretty epic season averages.
Yeah.
I think you can say the same thing about Monroe going up against Valanciunas. I think those two guys have shown pretty crazy high floor and ceiling. I think JV is the guy with probably the safer minutes. And then you got Tristan Thompson, who's like I said, seemingly in the best matchup. I think it's more. I don't know. I mean, he does flash upside, but when you got LeBron, Kyrie, and Love on your team in the playoffs, What truly is his upside?
Yeah. True
He can
that.
only do so much.
So, all right. Well, that
I
is
think we did it, man.
that is our opinion on today's slate. I just want to tease a couple things here. So, obviously, in a couple minutes, well, give us like 20 minutes, we'll be back with an MLB show. And then hockey playoffs have also started, as we mentioned, and we are trying to work out a hockey show. So, for those of you in Slack, Alex is extremely involved in hockey. We're going to try and get that up and running and do a hockey breakdown of games for the playoffs. This is obviously hockey playoffs, I think, are arguably the most intense playoffs of any sport. Hockey playoffs are legit, man. I don't know if any of you guys have ever watched them, but hockey playoffs
I
might
think
be.
hockey in general is arguably the most intense sport.
Yeah, but their playoffs might have the best. Their playoffs are some of the most fun to watch. Like you have hockey might be the one sport where you don't get a lot of viewership in the regular season, but come playoff time, that sport picks up, and for good reason. It's a fun sport to watch. So hockey,
Also, stay tuned for some baseball talk in just a few minutes.
yeah, and we have MMA today, and Mike is
Yep.
a huge MMA fan, and so we're gonna look at dabbing into some MMA content. Maybe not a video for it, but maybe some write ups, some cheat sheets, things like that. So it's not
Yeah,
my specialty, but
I've been watching for a while. I actually just started playing DraftKings MMA when they were in Brazil. So it's only been like 3 or 4 contests, but I'm starting to get the hang of it and cash a bit. So I figured, why not? Maybe we'll do some Q&A before the slate locks today.
there you go. So, all right, guys, well, stay tuned. We'll be back and do some baseball. Show doesn't want to end. Clicking the button. I legit can't end the show right now.
I mean, we could just go right into it, I guess.
This is pretty awesome. I legit cannot end the show right now. Like, my buttons are not clicking. Like, I can do everything else.
Something's going on.
Something's happening. Oh, there it is. All right, bye.